I always thought I'd retire at 65. Not because I was particularly eager to sit around in golf shorts or nurse a scotch while watching the sunset, but because I'd planned for it. Budgeted, calculated, worked double shifts when my knees gave out, skipped every vacation since 2008. All of it was so, one day, I could hang up my hard hat and finally rest. But on the day I was supposed to sign the papers, the day that was supposed to be mine, my daughter smiled across the kitchen island and said, "Dad, I need you to co-sign a loan." It was 8:02 a.m. on a Thursday. Her nails were perfectly manicured, coffee steaming in a white ceramic mug that I'd bought her last Christmas. "Best daughter ever," it read. I hadn't even sat down. Alyssa spoke the way some people request a waiter bring another drink. Like it was routine. Like there was no risk. Like I hadn't just spent the past 39 years preparing for a life that didn't include debt collectors breathing down my neck. "I already talked to the bank," she said, flipping her laptop around. "They just need your name and signature. It's a formality." I didn't say anything. She mistook my silence for curiosity. "It's not that much, just $210,000. And it's not like you'll be responsible. It's all under my name. I just don't qualify for the interest rate without a cosigner." My eyes dropped to the screen. Condo in Rivergate. Pre-approval details. Interest schedule. Balloon clause at year 5. My signature line, blank. "Why now?" I asked. She blinked. "Because I found the perfect place. And I have that new job. You know that." "No," I said. "Why now as in today? The same day I'm supposed to sign my retirement documents." "Oh, come on, Dad. It's not like you're poor. You've always said I was your investment. Well, this is a chance to cash in." I didn't recognize the voice that came out of my mouth. It was too steady, too slow. "Cash in," I repeated. Alyssa took a long sip of coffee. She wore her mother's sarcasm like an heirloom. "Don't be dramatic. I'm not asking you to die. Just help me get the condo, and then go enjoy your retirement. Isn't that what you've been working toward?" I looked past her, at the fridge covered in photos of birthday parties I'd paid for, college acceptance letters I'd framed, first apartments I'd financed. I looked at the calendar. A little red circle around today. Retirement day. Her handwriting. My hand curled slightly on the edge of the granite countertop. "I'm not signing," I said. The smile disappeared from her face like someone had cut a wire. "What?" "I'm not signing the loan." Alyssa stood up straighter. "Don't do this. Don't turn this into a thing." "I'm not turning it into anything," I said. "You are. You already did." She stared at me like I'd spoken a foreign language. "After everything I've done for you," I laughed. Once. Quiet and cold. She slammed the laptop shut. "You'll regret this." "I doubt it," I said. But that wasn't the end. It was the beginning. Because later that night, I discovered something far worse than her audacity. I logged into my retirement account, out of habit more than anything. But the balance didn't match what I'd seen just weeks earlier. A number was missing. A big one. Confused, I opened the detailed statement. And that's when the bottom dropped out. Multiple early withdrawals. Over the past 6 years. Each one authorized by my power of attorney. A document I'd signed back when I had surgery and needed someone to manage things, just in case. My daughter had been draining my retirement fund. Quietly, systematically. For years. That's when the clock stopped. Not just on my retirement plans, but on who I thought I was. And who she was. And that's the moment I knew I would not just walk away from this. I would teach her what it means to take something from someone who earned every single dollar with their bare hands. And by the time I was done, she wouldn't just lose the condo. She'd lose the illusion that anything she had was hers to begin with. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't rage or cry either. I just sat at my desk in the basement, the one Alyssa always called the museum, and printed every statement from my pension account, year by year, transaction by transaction. My reading glasses were fogged by midnight. I didn't stop. The first unauthorized withdrawal had been 7 months after my heart bypass. Small. Just over $4,000. Marked as emergency tuition support. Alyssa's MBA program. The next one came 4 months later. Auto purchase assistance. $8,600. Then bridal expenses. Housing stabilization. Medical copay. Dozens of lines. No invoices. No receipts. No permission. 6 years. $312,472 stolen from the future I spent 4 decades earning. The paper trail was meticulous. Almost professional. Because I'd taught her how to be that way. Taught her to label things cleanly. To account for expenses. To manage cash flow like it was a living thing. She used everything I gave her, including my trust, against me. By 3:18 a.m., I had a complete timeline. Cross-referenced with dates from her LinkedIn profile, bank transaction confirmations, and photos she'd smugly posted online. A vacation in Mykonos the same week she claimed a medical emergency. A new Louis Vuitton handbag just days after car repair charges. I stared at her filtered face, smiling from a balcony that I had unknowingly paid for. And I realized something. This wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a moment of desperation or a temporary lapse in judgment. It was a system. She hadn't just betrayed me. She'd built an entire adult life on the quiet siphoning of my sacrifices. I could have gone to the police, made it a case. She'd violated financial trust, misused power of attorney, forged documents. But that would have put her in prison. And I wasn't done with her yet. Prison was too fast, too forgettable. She needed to feel it. Slowly, deeply. The way I had every time I chose to skip a meal so she could have ballet lessons. Every time I took a double shift so her birthday party could have real ponies. Every single time I told myself it's worth it, when it hadn't been for years. She needed to be stripped not of freedom but illusion. So I made a plan. First, revoke the power of attorney. Immediately, quietly, without her knowing. Second, transfer what remained of my retirement into a secure trust. Unbreakable, with no access unless authorized in person. Third, call the one person I hadn't spoken to in a decade. My former accountant, Marcus. The only man who knew how I'd built everything from nothing, and how to unbuild someone else's world just as methodically. When I called, he answered on the second ring. "Jack," he said, "after all these years? I need your help," I said. "It's about my daughter." A pause. Then, "How bad?" "She took everything." He was silent for a long moment. Then, "All right, come in tomorrow. Bring everything." By the time the sun rose, my printer was out of ink. My coffee was cold. But my path was clear. This wouldn't be about revenge. It would be about correction. And the first step was making sure Alyssa realized she'd made a mistake far bigger than theft. She'd underestimated the man who taught her everything she knows. But not everything he's capable of. Marcus hadn't aged a day. Still the same pressed shirt, same steel gray stare, same legal pad with immaculately aligned bullet points. "You said 6 years of unauthorized withdrawals," he said, flipping through my documents. "You brought proof." I handed him the folder. Everything, down to the cent. He skimmed the pages like a surgeon reading an X-ray. "Power of attorney? Revoked. Yesterday." "Good." Quietly. "She doesn't know." He looked up and smiled for the first time. "Then you still have the element of surprise. That's power." I let the word settle. Power. It was something I hadn't felt in a long time. Marcus outlined the plan in 3 stages. Asset protection. Secure every remaining account. Lock access to pension, property titles, and insurance. Move the rest into a trust she can't touch. Evidence trail. Document every withdrawal. Cross-reference them with her own social media. If she flaunted stolen money online, Marcus said, we'll make her bragging the rope she hangs herself with. Strategic exposure. Not public, not yet, but just enough to collapse her credit lines. "She'll need to refinance eventually," he said. "When she does, we'll be waiting." He leaned back in his chair, tapping a pen against the desk. "Are you looking to recover the money?" "No," I said. "Not directly." "Then what's the endgame?" "She thinks she's untouchable," I said. I want her to understand what happens when the person she's standing on stops carrying her weight. That afternoon, I executed every step. Bank meetings, lawyer calls, title reviews, insurance freezes. I shut every door she didn't even know had been left open for her entire adult life. By evening, I had control over every asset linked to my name, and indirectly hers. She still lived in the illusion that money would keep flowing, that her comfort was an entitlement, that she could lie, cheat, steal, and I'd forgive. I didn't call her, didn't warn her. I waited, and 3 days later it came. Dad, hey, quick thing, Alyssa said on speakerphone, her voice full of forced calm. My online banking app isn't showing the joint savings account. Did something glitch? I didn't answer immediately. Dad? She said again, sharper now. I closed the account, I said. Transferred the funds to my trust. What? You don't have access to any of my assets anymore. The silence was instant. Then came the shift, the mask slipping. Is this about the loan thing? I was going to drop it. No, Alyssa, I said. This is about the $312,472 you stole from me over 6 years. She laughed. It was high and brittle. Stole? You gave me permission. I gave you temporary power of attorney while I was recovering from heart surgery. You used it to extract money I never authorized, and you lied about the reasons. I was your daughter. You said I was your investment. I was investing in your future, I said. Not financing your Instagram. The phone crackled with dead air. You think you can just cut me off? She hissed. You think that's fair? No, I said quietly. I think it's overdue. Then I hung up. That night, I took out the final envelope from my safe. The one with the deed to the lake house she always assumed she'd inherit. The next day, I changed the beneficiary. Not to spite her, but to free myself. It took less than 48 hours for the panic to set in. I knew the signs. The sudden flurry of texts. Not angry, but chipper, casual, full of fake warmth like she was trying to rewind time. Hey, Dad. Thinking about doing a barbecue at my place next weekend. Wanna come by? We could catch up. Weird question, but do you still have the guy's number who did the tile work at the lake house? I might redo the bathroom here and could use your advice. Then, by day 3, the questions turned pointed. Hey, just checking. Did the joint insurance account get changed? I got a weird notification from the app. Also, my credit score dropped 38 points overnight. Any idea why that might happen? I didn't respond. Not because I didn't want to, because I was letting her sit in silence. The same kind of silence I'd felt when I saw the first unauthorized withdrawal. When I realized that my future had already been spent behind my back. Marcus and I met again that Friday. She's already started applying for new lines of credit, he said, scrolling through public lending databases. Pre-approvals, co-signer applications, even a cash advance request through her corporate card. Denied. Why? Because her existing financial dependency on you is now being flagged, Marcus said. You've removed your name. That makes her look like a flight risk to lenders. I nodded. We weren't sabotaging her. We were simply removing the invisible scaffolding she'd been standing on her entire adult life. Marcus leaned back. Want to stop here? No, I said. Next step. He smiled. The condo. Alyssa's Rivergate condo was still in the pre-close phase. She hadn't signed final documents yet. They were contingent on stable income and verified funds for the down payment. What she didn't know was that the verification email from her bank had already been flagged, because the co-signer assets she'd listed were in my name, assets I'd just moved to a trust. At 9:11 a.m., I called her mortgage officer, gave them updated financials. By noon, her conditional approval was revoked. She found out at 4:32 p.m. I know that because she called me 17 times. I didn't pick up. Not then. I was in the garage, tightening bolts on the old Schwinn bicycle I'd rebuilt when she was 9. She used to ride it down the block with her hair flying. No hands on the bars, yelling, "Look at me, Dad." Now she was screaming into a voicemail. You had no right. That was my condo. I've already told people I'm moving in. The entitlement in her voice was louder than the fury. I let the message play out. Then I scrolled to an old contact. A contractor named Luis. The one who helped me build that lake house 15 years ago. The one Alyssa had called smelly when she was a teenager, because he brought his own lunch in a plastic grocery bag. I offered him the house, not to live in, to sell and split the proceeds. He called me hermano and cried over the phone. I hung up and opened a fresh manila folder. I labeled it Alyssa Phase 2, because the condo wasn't the end. It was only the beginning of her falling out of a life she never earned. The next time she called, she didn't bother pretending to be sweet. It was 6:57 a.m. on a Sunday, a time she normally reserved for sleeping in, detox smoothies, and uploading sunrise photos with the caption grateful. Not today. Did you seriously cancel the trust fund grandma left me? That was how she started. No hello. No pause. I let the silence hang. She told me it was mine, she snapped. I was just waiting until I turned 30 to access it. That was always the plan. You're 31, I said calmly. And grandma didn't leave you anything. She left it to me in trust. I just didn't tell you because I knew you'd burn through it in 6 months. A gasp. You lied to me? No, I said. I protected you. There's a difference. One you never learned. I was counting on that money. You were counting on a lot of things, I said, most of which you never earned. She hung up. That evening, I went to the basement and opened the old fireproof box. Inside was every handwritten card she'd ever given me. Father's Day notes from grade school. Crayon drawings. I love you letters from summer camp. The one she made after her first breakup, when I stayed up all night in the passenger seat of her car while she cried into her sweatshirt. I read them all. Then I put them back and locked the box. Not because I'd forgiven her, but because I wasn't ready to stop loving the version of her that wrote those letters. The next morning, Marcus called. Her employer just sent us an email, he said. Apparently, she submitted a falsified pay stub to try and qualify for a bridge loan. HR got wind. Internal investigation started today. My grip tightened on the mug. She's about to lose her job, he added. This won't be quiet. I exhaled. Slowly. This is the part where it gets ugly, Marcus warned. No, I said. This is the part where it gets real. Because for the first time in her life, Alyssa was about to meet the version of the world that didn't come with padding. No soft landings. No father to clean up the mess. That afternoon, she sent me one line in a text. You are ruining my life. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I typed back. No, I'm ending the version you stole. And I meant it. Because there's a difference between ruin and reckoning. And I wasn't here to destroy her. I was here to take away the illusion that she ever had the right to everything she'd stolen. By Thursday, the damage was everywhere. Her job gone. HR found multiple infractions, not just the forged pay stub. Unreported gifts from clients. An used vacation marked as work from home. Misuse of the company car. She called sobbing. I didn't answer. That afternoon, her boyfriend, the entrepreneur who lived off her Instagram partnerships and free hotel stays, posted a story tagged Freedom Vibes from a rooftop bar in LA. He wasn't with her. 2 hours later, she texted. He left. Said I'm too heavy now. Said I bring drama. Is this what you wanted? I didn't reply. That evening I drove to the pier. Sat on the old bench where I used to take her for fish and chips after softball games. We'd watch the boats come in. Gulls screaming overhead. Her small hand clutching mine with mustard on her cheek. That girl's gone. But I stayed. Not to mourn, but to remember who I used to be too. The man who once thought love meant self-erasure. Who believed good parenting was unconditional giving, even in the face of exploitation. He's gone too. The next morning, Marcus emailed me the final financial report. The full audit. 5 years of abuse, theft, and indirect damages. It came to $398,240. We filed it quietly in family court. Not for the money, I didn't expect to see a cent. But to make the record official. Irrefutable. Permanent. Because someday she'll try to rewrite the story. She'll tell friends that I cut her off for no reason, that I overreacted, that I was cruel. I wanted the court record to speak when I no longer had the voice to. Later that day, a mutual friend of ours, Donna, from the old neighborhood, called to check in. "I saw Alyssa at Trader Joe's," she said gently. She looked lost. She said she's staying in a sublet. Asked me if I knew anyone hiring. I didn't ask for details. I already knew the job market doesn't smile kindly on influencers with revoked licenses, bad credit, and a financial fraud investigation pending. "She said you were being harsh," Donna added. "I'm being final," I said. That night, for the first time in months, I slept without waking up once. And in the morning, I walked out onto the back porch, made coffee, and watched the sky light up without thinking about who was stealing from me while I slept. Peace isn't loud. It's just absent of theft. The first letter came in a pale blue envelope. No return address. Her handwriting on the front, neat, careful, like when she used to write thank you notes to her teachers in 4th grade. Inside, one page. Lined paper. No decorations. "Dad, I know you hate me right now. Maybe forever. I'm not gonna ask for money. I don't have the right. I can't explain what I was thinking. Somewhere along the way I started believing it was all just part of being your daughter. Like the money was built into the role. I never saw it as theft. I didn't even see you. I'm sorry. Not for losing the condo or the job or the boyfriend. I'm sorry I made you feel like you never mattered outside your wallet. I know I did that. Alyssa." I stared at the page for a long time. Not reading, just holding. The paper still smelled faintly of her perfume. A detail that might have softened me a year ago. Now it just felt like packaging. I didn't respond. Not because I wasn't moved, but because I wasn't done watching her sit with the silence she'd given me for years. She had weaponized neglect. Made me invisible. She could live inside that echo a little longer. By week's end, a second letter arrived. This time with an itemized list. Her expenses. Rent. Groceries. Bus fare. She included receipts, neatly highlighted, and an honest question at the end. "What would you have done at 31 with this kind of start?" Because I'm sitting in a one-bedroom with roaches and no idea how to live without borrowing. It was the first time she asked something without expecting the answer to come with a check attached. I didn't reply to that one either, but I took it upstairs and laid it next to the childhood photo of her in pigtails, holding a lemonade stand sign with glitter on her cheeks. Then I called Marcus. "Do we still have access to the educational fund?" I asked. He paused. "Yes, untouched. You want to release it?" "No," I said. "I want to make a proposal." And so we did. 3 days later, she received an envelope, this time from my lawyer. Inside was a new document. Not threatening, not punitive. Contract. Terms of rebuilding, it was titled. In exchange for monthly support, modest but enough to survive, she would attend vocational training. Any program of her choice. She would submit progress reports, proof of job applications, budget breakdowns, and she would write me 1 letter per month, not about money, but about what she was learning. There was no deadline, no promise of forgiveness, only the condition that this time she'd build something, or she'd get nothing. She took 3 days to reply. The envelope arrived on a Tuesday. She signed it, the contract, every page, every clause. Her signature at the bottom was smaller than I remembered. Hesitant. The pen strokes lacked their usual confidence. It didn't scream entitlement. It whispered something closer to humility. It was a start. She enclosed a note with it. Just 5 lines. "I don't know how to be the person this contract is asking for, but I want to try. Not because I want the money, because I want to look you in the eye again one day. Alyssa." I didn't cry. I thought maybe I would. But instead I filed the contract into a folder labeled New Terms. Then I made the first transfer. $1,200. Enough to survive, not enough to coast. The account was locked from overdrafts, flagged for purchases from travel, luxury, or entertainment vendors. Marcus handled the logistics. She began sending letters. one per month. The first was clumsy. She wrote about the cashier job she landed at a supermarket, about how her feet hurt from standing all day, how she'd never realized how many kinds of apples there were or how rude people could be over coupons. She ended it with, "I used to think you weren't ambitious because you never wanted a real office job. I didn't understand that labor is love, too. I see it now." The second letter was sharper. She talked about attending a free financial literacy workshop at the community center, about learning the real cost of credit, about crying in her car after realizing how much she didn't know, and how many decisions she'd made blind. "You protected me from reality so well, I never developed armor. I'm learning how to build it now." Each letter was a little less polished, a little more raw, and for the first time in years, she didn't sound like someone performing worth. She sounded like someone discovering it. Still, I didn't reply. Not yet. This wasn't a story that ended with reconciliation over coffee and apologies smoothed into cliches. This was a long road. Reputation, trust, dignity. None of that gets rebuilt in 3 steps and a monthly transfer. But I kept every letter, stacked them in the same fireproof box as the old ones, now split in 2 halves, the child she had been and the woman she was trying to become. I didn't know yet which side would win, but at least she'd stopped stealing and started earning. By the 6th letter, she stopped calling herself a victim. That was the shift I'd been waiting for. I used to say things happened to me, like I had no control. But now I realize most of it happened because of me. The spending, the job loss, the people I chose to keep close. You didn't ruin my life. You saved what little was left of it. That month, she'd enrolled in a 2-year certification program for physical therapy aides. Not glamorous, not lucrative, but honest, rooted in something real. She included a photo of her ID badge. No filters, no makeup, just tired eyes and a half-smile that actually looked like hers. I put the photo in a frame, not to forgive, not to forget, just to remember what trying looks like. Meanwhile, the world kept spinning. Marcus closed the file on the court proceedings. No charges, no public mess. The audit sat in a sealed envelope in a safety deposit box under her name. She knew it existed, knew I had the right to use it anytime. That was enough. I began to hear from people again. Not about her, about me. Contractors, old friends, people who had seen the newspaper article, the online drama, the gossip, and were now circling back after the smoke had cleared. "You did what a lot of us wish we had the guts to do," one of them said. But it wasn't about guts. It was about grief. Grieving the person you thought your child would be. The life you thought your sacrifices were building. The illusion that love was some kind of guarantee. I used to think parenting meant shielding them from consequences. Now I knew better. Parenting, real parenting, sometimes means being the consequence. In her 7th letter, Alyssa wrote, "There's a girl in my class who reminds me of myself at 22. She talks about her parents like they're banks. And I finally hear how awful it sounds. I didn't see it until it echoed out of someone else's mouth. That was the first time I allowed myself to hope. Not because she was changing, but because she was listening to herself with new ears. 1 year after the day she asked me to co-sign the loan, the same day I discovered the theft, a small box arrived at my door. No return label, just my name in block letters. Inside, a silver watch, my old one. The same watch I pawned 15 years ago to cover her first semester's tuition when the financial aid didn't come through. I never told her I'd sold it. Didn't think she noticed it was gone. But here it was. Restored. Clean. The strap restitched. A note underneath folded into quarters. I tracked it down through the pawnshop's old ledgers. Took me 4 months and 2 part-time jobs. I can't repay everything. But I can return something. I know this doesn't fix us. I'm not asking for that. I just want you to know I'm still climbing. And this time I brought my own rope. Alyssa. I held the watch in my palm for a long time. The weight of it felt different now. Not just metal. Not just memory. Felt earned. That evening, I did something I hadn't done in over a year. Called her. She answered on the 2nd ring. She didn't speak. Just breathed. "I got the watch," I said. Another breath. Thank you. A pause. Then, I didn't know if you'd open it. I did. Silence. Then, from her, I'm not done becoming someone better. I know, I said. Another pause. I'm not either. We didn't promise to fix everything. We didn't cry or say we missed each other. We just stayed on the line. Two people who had finally stopped pretending. Two people who had wrecked something and were quietly building a second foundation. Not because they had to, but because they could. And maybe that's all healing really is. Not apology. Not erasure. Just the decision to try again without illusions this time. Only wood, nails, weight, and the understanding that this time we both carry our own beams.